Welcome to the Madam Trader podcast, where we talk with expert women traders about their unique stories of growing their accounts, making their own rules, and creating the lives they want to live. I'm your host, Ashley Kyle Miller. Let's talk trading. Welcome back to the Madam Trader podcast. I'm Ashley Kyle Miller, and today I'm chatting with Lydia Idem, investor, investment advisor, and VC fund manager. Lydia, you have such a diverse and interesting background. I'm so excited to dive in here today, from forex trader to helping other people with their investments to investing in growing companies in Africa. It's just incredible. So to get going, I'd just like to learn a little more about your background and how you got started with all of this.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So how I got started, honestly, my mother, when I think we're all young, we get bank accounts. My mother, alongside of a savings account, she got me a custodian account. So I had access to be able to invest before I knew what to do with it. And it really wasn't until, AP economics in high school that I learned about stocks. Like the teacher literally gave us a newspaper, taught us how to read tickers and how to read prices. And the next day after basketball practice, I drove myself to Charles Schwab and said, hey, I'd like to buy stocks. And they just, they looked at me. I was 17 years old and like, well, do you have an account? I said, of course I do. I brought my account statement. I said, well, sit down. So that's how I got started in investing. I bought some mutual funds right before I headed off to college and was able actually to sell some of those when I got back from a study abroad trip to pay off some credit card debt that I had naturally accrued shopping in Italy. And so that's really how I got started, just investing. It was really just some foresight from my mother, and then just taking initiative, on what I had learned and putting it into action.
That's incredible. Go, Mom. What an awesome beginning. I mean, so young. We always say the younger you start, the better off you are. And I think it also not only gives you that education early on, but you don't have the same sort of fear and mystique that a lot of people get around it when they start later in life. So, oh my goodness, how incredible. Well, I have to ask where you were in Italy, because I also went to Italy right out of high school. I think how parallel, how fun that you used your investments to pay for that. I mean, that's a dream trip. Yes. And for a lot of people, it takes a long time to save to make it a reality.
Yeah. So I went to Pisa, and then from Pisa, that was like home base. And then we did weekend trips to Verona and Venice and Milan and Rome, Capri. So we did the whole thing, like we did our classes were at the University of Pisa. And so that's where we stayed. And then on weekends, we went all around the country. So I had an amazing time.
I love it. Yeah, I did too. I think those early experiences are so fundamental. Yeah. And having both this early exposure to investing and trading, and then being able to see what you can do with it. No wonder you've stuck with it for so long. So when we were visiting earlier, you'd mentioned that you started off when you were actively trading more really with forex. What was it that drove you to forex rather than other instruments?
Yeah. So for me, again, my mom introduced me to forex. She had heard about it or learned about it and was going to a webinar and asked me to, it was a seminar before webinars, and asked me to join her. And I said, okay, well, what is it about? And she was like, you can buy and sell currencies. And I was just like, no, you can't. And it was as soon as I said that, I was like, okay, let me go with you, because clearly there's something here I don't know. Let me learn about it before I speak on it. So what drew me to forex, because what I knew about stocks is that you could buy. It's not really so much that you can sell like short sales, right? It's really just buying and then you sell what you have. When I learned about forex, and I learned that you can buy when it's going up naturally, but you can sell when it's going down, like as easily as I could buy something and it just as naturally. I mean, that honestly, that's what sold me, that I can make money in both directions of the market. And that's when I was very curious about it. What I loved, the second thing I loved was the macroeconomic effects versus the micro. So, as we know with stocks, you have to know what's going on in the company. You need, that's not always public. It's released, much later or after the fact than events happen. With Forex, we can see a release of the jobs report and get immediate market reaction, and you can trade that market reaction. So I loved learning then about the macro environment of different countries, how they're juxtaposed to each other, because we trade Forex currency pairs. So you're always trading one against the other. So it's just relative, one country's strength or weakness relative to another. And the liquidity of the market, just being able to move in and out so easily. It was a 24/6 market. All of those things for me is really enabled me to be more active, become a more active trader without so many of the restrictions that you get with the stock markets.
Absolutely. It's a lot more accessible when you're starting out, isn't it?
It is. You can use smaller amounts of money because of leverage, which, can go either way. But just the liquidity, being able to choose when you can trade because it's open 24 hours a day, because of that worldwide effect, it does feel a lot more accessible than stocks, where you really have a predetermined time when the markets are open. You have a set universe of stocks, but you have to really know what's going on with those stocks as well. And I know the technical traders out there will say, not really. Yes, I understand that but in my style of trading, there is a level of a balance between fundamental and technical analysis. And so just being able to have as much access as anyone else in the markets, not just the insiders of a particular company, but we all can, hypothesize what the jobs number is going to be, but we all find out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time on Friday. We all find out at the same exact time. So I just love that it just felt a lot more democratized than the stock market can feel sometimes.
I love that. I think that's a really great way to look at it. There's a lot of conversation around democratizing the market now with all of these apps and more access, which, I think have a lot of benefit. There's also a lot of people getting involved without necessarily knowing everything that goes into trading. So I'm curious, do you think for someone starting out now, would you still go the Forex route? Or do you think because of all these new tools, maybe paper trading and getting involved in equities with the more accessibility it has would be a good route?
Yeah, so I would say it depends on your goals. Like if you're really looking to be an active trader, I think the instruments doesn't matter so much. I just think with Forex, I think there's just a more natural tendency to buying and selling than there is with stocks. It's just that the concept of short selling is not natural. So, but the concept of just selling euros makes sense. Like there's no extra effort I need to do in order to, I just hit the sell button versus the buy button. It's not as straightforward with stocks. So I will still contend that when you're learning, I prefer to teach. The Forex market is, I think, the best because we can pick any time of day that works for both of us. We can, easily buy and sell. And that concept of buying when the market's up and selling when it's down, it's just more intuitive for the beginner trader than even stocks can be, especially if you're really looking to play both sides of the market. So I still think Forex is the best market in which to learn. But then as you evolve and you mature as a trader, it really is incumbent upon you then to pick the right instruments that work for your lifestyle and for your financial goals.
Absolutely. I think that's very insightful with Forex and why it makes sense getting started. I know sometimes it's confusing for people that you're trading one currency against the other, but once you get used to that, you don't have to contend with short selling and some of the other more complicated approaches that can come up in equities. So I think that's really sound advice there. Now, I know that you started out there, but then have had a really long career and journey, both as a financial advisor and investing in venture capital. How did you transition from active trading into more of an investor and a mentor and helping other people grow wealth?
So when I first traded the Forex markets, like everybody else, I stayed up 24 hours a day, traded all times of the day, traded all the instruments that I could. And it was through that learning process that it came into a style of trading that worked for me. So I'm more of a string trader anyways. So I am more of the long-term trading approach. I realize that day trading and active trading gives me a lot of anxiety. And when I learned that I don't have to trade that way, because there's a feeling that you have to be active in the markets, you have to constantly day trade, right? When I learned I don't have to, I can actually be successful even in forex with a swing trading approach. That's when I realized like that style for me then crosses asset classes. I can take that approach in stocks as well. I can take that approach in mutual funds. You can take that long-term approach in real estate. And if you're in private markets, you have to take that long-term approach in venture capital. So for me, once I settled on the fact that I was a swing trader, I didn't have to adjust my style for the market per se. I could just basically figure out how does this translate in this particular asset class. Usually the holding times are going to be different. Obviously, the mechanics of execution are specific to the market. But it really was like, a longer term approach not only works with forex stocks, but it also works in real estate, it also works in venture capital. And so I can not be so limited even in my approach to creating wealth, but I can really utilize all asset classes depending on how the market is doing. So again, that still being able to study the macro environment because of the forex trading and then seeing how it applies across asset classes and then taking advantage of the opportunities.
That's excellent. It sounds like you really know yourself, which I think is so key. In trading, you have to know.
It's really important.
Yeah. What resonates with you? I always say to people, there's a bunch of ways you can do this and do it successfully. What style works for your personality and your goals, and how beautiful that you've then transferred that into these other asset classes. Because I think oftentimes, investing can seem a little out there in the ethers and we're not sure what does that really mean. But then looking at, stocks are one piece of it. Real estate is one piece of it. Being able to invest in other businesses. And I'd really love to talk to you about the work you're doing there, because not only are you investing in entrepreneurs, but really impactfully in markets that, are growing and traditionally haven't had as much access to capital. So could you share with us a little bit about what you're doing in that space now?
Yes. So when I launched FM Capital Group, I had already made my first angel investment on the continent, a second angel investment in my personal portfolio. And those experiences made me realize that this was an asset class that we could actually participate in. And I mean, we as individual investors, it's not something just to the purview of VC firms. And I think so and on top of that, there's just a lot of opaqueness and mystery around venture capital. It doesn't feel as an accessible asset class. So when I launched FM Capital Group, I really wanted to not just manage portfolios and grow wealth and assets, but I really wanted people to include venture capital as another asset class in their portfolio and then providing access to that. So that's how I started the firm, with that impetus. And because I already knew how to do it, I was already doing it. It was just a matter of being an advisor who could guide that entire process and just let people in, basically providing access to opportunities that make a lot of sense for their portfolio, but also for the challenges that's being solved by that company and the product and the solutions that they're bringing to market. My family is from Nigeria. So for me, it's been like I grew up feeling like I was always going to invest in Nigeria. When I was younger, I just thought it was going to be through real estate because didn't know about tech then. This is pre the .com boom. So didn't know about tech or VC, thought it would be real estate. As I'm growing up, going through college, coming out of my undergraduate degree, coming out of business school, seeing the .com bubble and boom and bust, I realized, we're going to start I'm going to start investing in companies in Nigeria. That's what I'm going to do. It doesn't take as much capital, relatively speaking. And because of social media, believe it or not, I just got connected more and more to more founders on the continent who were based there or who were moving there or had done their schooling like on the college here and then moved back and were starting companies. And I said, okay, what you're doing makes sense to me. Let me make, an investment on my own. And it was incredible at the time. This was just 2012. How many folks were hesitant? And I say incredible at the time because I'm talking to people who were like me, who were children of African immigrants who had wanted nothing to do with investing. And to see this, for them to watch me investing, and now they're coming to me and saying, hey, I'd like to get involved. How do we get involved? So that, it to me is probably the most exciting thing that's happened over, my almost 10-year journey, just investing in venture capital in Africa, is the excitement around it. There's more interest around it, and more individuals are getting involved with putting their money to work in this way. So yeah, I think there's a lot of talk, like our work is impactful, but I feel like we don't have to set out to find impact. It's because, just as you said it, this is a region that's been traditionally underserved already, particularly with access to capital, and really strong global businesses that can solve those type of challenges. And so it's just exciting for us just to be able to provide the capital that allows these businesses and these founders to entrepreneurs to grow their business. So that's the exciting part for me. Like, we don't even have to look for impact. You just tell me the problem that you're solving. And then some of us can say, yeah, that resonates. I go through those pain points, and this seems amazing, right? And then we can fund those just based on sound business practices. But yeah, the work in the work in the ecosystem right now is really exciting. It's picking up a lot. I recently joined a fund as COO I'll just tell you, like, that experience right now has been incredible. It's just been incredible.
Congrats.
To watch. Thank you. It's not just to raise a fund that will do this investing. It's actually been working with investors that are of African descent, who are investing their capital to make this change happen, change that we all been talking about, and we're all putting our money where our mouth is. So it's been an incredible journey.
It sounds incredible. It has me excited. I think the difference when you're investing in a company rather than buying a piece of stock, you technically own the company either way, but you really are involved in the process here. Like you said, impact is baked into it, right? You get to see the problems they're solving and really be involved. And I think that that's really exciting and something that a lot more people are interested in. It's not just that they want a return on their money, but they want it to matter. And so I think how special that you can do that in a place that's so personal to you. And like you say, they're already doing incredible things, and you can just bring it even further. I'm curious how special it's been for you to really be a leader in this space, because like you said, even, other children of African immigrants in the States were kind of hesitant, and you really had to pave the way. And I think so often, whether it's investing in companies or getting involved as a trader or whatever our pursuits are, if we don't have an example, it's a little hard to feel welcome, to see the vision, to know you can do it. We talk about this a lot on the podcast with, women in the trading space in general. And I think, being a person of color, a daughter of immigrants, it's like you've got all of these ways to be a trailblazer. And it's really inspiring. I think it makes a big difference. For myself, I grew up in a family that was involved in the market, so it didn't seem off limits, but there still weren't a lot of women, right? And so clearly you had a strong mother who set you up for success here, but I'm just curious what that journey has meant for you and how you've seen that ripple effect in other people following in your footsteps.
Well, thank you, because I don't see myself as a trailblazer at all in this space. But I think I've been very welcomed by the finance industry in business. I think that, and it's my personality, I think, helps. I guess not. I definitely feel imposter syndrome, especially when I first started. I'll tell you, when I got on Twitter, started talking about markets, got a following, and then got the request to teach me how to trade, the request to manage money for me. Can you trade my account? And those were all rejected. I did not feel qualified. I didn't have a finance degree. I didn't have the Wall Street, internship and career path. And I just felt like I was raised to, go to school, get your degree, and then you work in that same field for the rest of your life until you retire, right? So to even pivot from computer science is my background to finance took me probably 8 years. So it took a lot of time for me to really believe that, yeah, I can make money. I was making money in my accounts already, but to help people to do this and be qualified to lead, to teach was just it took me a lot of time. It just took me a lot of time. It took a lot of support from really my brother, really other traders. Like I know you spoke with Anne Marie. She was one of the women I spoke to very early on when I met her on Twitter. Yeah, she really encouraged me that, how to go about making this a business beyond just trading. And it took those early people, it took a lot of men who were like, no, Lydia, you can do this. You can go for it. So I've just really been embraced by the industry. I'm really very thankful. I don't have very many incidences of overt exclusion. I think you can feel, you can go to a conference or step into a room and clearly see I'm the only Black person or I'm the only woman, and it can be intimidating, but for me, I just use that intimidating energy and just to fuel myself. I don't need to make myself bigger or smaller. If I have a question, I'm going to ask. If I don't understand something, I'm going to ask. And if I have something to say, I'm just going to say it. And I just embrace the fact that however I express is going to be very different than the status quo in the room or in the industry. And I have to be okay with that. And so when I became okay with my expression, it just doesn't really matter if it's received or not. I'm coming from a good place, or I'm coming from a place of I don't know, so I want to learn. And it's been really well received. So that's what I've always done. And, I have women and men who want me to mentor them, who want me to advise them, who are following my path, but also like just doing even more amazing things because so much of the regulatory environment has changed, or just so much of the access has changed. Even attitudes within the last even couple years have changed to where there's more fund managers, there's more women traders, there's more Black VCs, like all these kind of trends. Like when I even started just 10 years ago, it just didn't look like this. And, the attitudes weren't like this. But for me personally, I've been really blessed to just have really amazing men and women who've been open to seeing, I think, a young Black woman succeed in this business. And so I'm just really thankful to them. And I've had an amazing experience just in this career.
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, I think that speaks to the change that we're seeing culturally going in the right direction. But also, I think you really called it when you said you just own your space, right? You are who you are. You've showed up. You're here to do it. And I think oftentimes when we show up for ourselves, everybody else welcomes us anyway, right? It's when we kind of fall into that, oh, should I be here, that things can get dicey. So bravo. Well done. It's really great to hear that everyone has been so supportive. I've also found that when you ask for help and are open to it, that you can find it in surprising places where you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, is this person, but yeah, you know what, send that DM, ask them what they think. You never know. Because it's a small industry, even people who are, established oftentimes do want to help people who are up and coming. So yes, it's a nice momentum to have. I'm curious what the companies are doing in Nigeria that you're investing in.
Sure. So we say that we are sector agnostic, and we look at Pan Africa. The country, some of the sectors we're invested in is energy tech. So our first investment with clients that we syndicated clients into is an energy tech company called Shift Power Solutions. They do solar powered and app that allows homeowners to switch between power sources. So I know the Nigerians on the call understand what I'm talking about, between your power grid and your generator for your house. So you can do that remotely from your phone. But on top of that, you're now getting energy data, which, for businesses is huge. And so we saw that need just very simply because literally at home, everyone's switching it with their, manually, or you call somebody to go and switch it from the generator to the national grid. So we understood that pain point and we invested likewise. We're also invested in a transportation and logistics company. We're in a health tech company that we invested in really last month. We're doing a wealth tech company that provides access to investments beyond Nigeria that also allows that growing middle class to preserve their wealth in the face of a devalue or weakening currency, but allows them to diversify their wealth outside of Nigeria. And we just completed a investment in a prop tech company in Uganda that allows tenants and property owners to establish their respective land rights, which is a little different for us in the U.S., but very common in UK and in African countries, given their law system. And we're looking at now what are we looking at? Oh, we're looking at a health and beauty company right now. So we look across sectors, but we're really looking at innovation that, again, is solving major challenges, or even not even major, but really global challenges and pain points, something that can, obviously scale beyond Nigeria into other countries and even other regions. As we look at Africa, we look at Latin America as well, the Caribbean, we look at Southeast Asia. We believe that what we call the global South has very similar challenges and pain points. And so we believe a global company could just be successful serving those challenges in that part of the world. So we're excited about those things.
That's incredible. All of those diverse problems that you're solving do sound really transferable to other regions of the world. So I'm excited to see where you guys go from here. If it starts scaling to South America, or even some of these, I'm thinking, I know people who switch between a generator and the power grid, even, out in Montana where I grew up, that could be useful in lots of places.
Yeah, that company is actually looking to expand into the U.S. from Nigeria.
Oh,
so they're looking at that, and also Southeast Asia. So that's exactly what we found out was like, this problem exists also in the U.S. I didn't know that. I live in the Bay Area, so I had no idea we had generators in the U.S., to be honest with you.
No, I think that's fair. There are a lot of problems that exist even in our own backyards that if they don't impact our lives, we don't necessarily know that it's out there. So it's going to be fun to see where these investments and companies go and just the global nature of it. That's wonderful. If people want to see more about what you guys are doing, do they just go to FM Capital Group to see a list of who you're invested in working with?
Yes. So we haven't made our portfolio public yet, but you can always reach out to me. You can learn more about the company at fmcapitalgrp.com, also on Twitter. And you made me think of one company in our portfolio. It's in the Congo where they do recycling of plastics, but they turn it into an alternative wood. And so they're going to use those materials. Now they're working with the government to get a contract to supply for housing, because there's a housing deficit in the Congo, of course, like everywhere. But instead of using their trees and deforesting, they want to use the plastic waste, which is unfortunately in abundance just in the streets. So yeah, you're right. It's just just beautifying your space and cleaning up the waste. But this guy, Eric, the entrepreneur, he's like, we can actually use this into usable, real material that can then solve another challenge, which is in housing. So you're right. I completely agree with you. Just because I think the take on the problem is different from eyes that are not so steeped in convenience. Like that's our problem in the US. Everything is very convenient. So if I'm convenienced, you can probably turn my gaze from whatever problem that doesn't affect my life, even though it's blatant, like just homelessness and trash, which we have. Those are big problems in the US. But because we're so convenienced, someone else will handle it. Where if you don't have that convenience, it's a problem that does affect your life. And you want to remedy it. Well,
and then when it's out of sight, we keep avoiding it even more. I think you nailed it. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? So if you can't look away, you're going to find the solution. But no, so often, whether it's, ecological, political, whatever, if it's not affecting us, it's too easy to just say, well, someone else take care of that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Good for you guys for being the ones to take the initiative to take care of it. I'm excited to see these houses made from plastic bottles. That's like next level. Oh my
I'm
God.
excited to see that too. I'm just like, wow. Yeah. I mean, right now they're just doing like piping. So all the piping in a house, is all done with their material. And it's just like, wow. I mean, it looks like, like an IKEA wood thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like that kind of probably more durable, but just that cheap and cheaply made. So it's,
well, that's just it.
I mean, we were sold. Yeah, we were blown away. We're just like, yeah, brilliant. And then they're only raising $15,000. So it's like, what?
So that's interesting. I wanted to ask you about that too, because I think a lot of times, there's a trepidation about getting involved in markets because of the capital you need to start. But it sounds like you're doing some really powerful investments that don't take a tremendous amount of capital. So I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't have $1 million to invest, so I can't. But you can.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So one of the reasons why we really try to stay in the region, we have some US based investments, but we really try to stay in the region because our dollar goes so much further outside of the US, particularly in Africa and Latin America, just by the exchange rate. So companies aren't raising, they don't have a capital requirement that's so large. Also, because the standard of living is much lower, wages are just relatively lower. Cost of materials can probably be higher, but if it's denominated or priced in dollars. But if it's priced locally, it's relatively cheap just to get started in a business. So yeah, you don't need millions of dollars. You really need a couple thousand. I don't want anyone to think that you should be investing with a couple hundred either. Like these are still businesses, right? Yeah. So, and I have to debunk that myth too. Sometimes like, oh yeah, I can do $200. No, you can't do $200, but $2,000 goes really, really far. I mean, in some countries, that's millions in the local currency. So it's important to understand like the impact can be so great, but the capital requirement doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be crazy. Something that we can't, it's something that's definitely accessible. I think in terms of our purchasing power and the wealth that we're able to generate just in our income, in our own incomes and jobs and things. So I really encourage everyone, just generally speaking, you should think about having venture capital in your portfolio. I call it the wealth creation vehicle of the 21st century that real estate was for the 20th century. And we should all be participating in it.
I love that. I think that's a really great way to grasp the reach that it's having right now. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. So I'm curious then, with this vehicle, we talk a lot in trading about risk management, and there's got to be some risk management at play here too. I've heard other VC investors say, well, it's sort of like putting, 20 bets on, and I know 19 of them will fail, but one's going to hit really big and it makes up for all the failures. What sort of parameters do you use when you're selecting a company to fund?
Yes. So we wanted to, and we touched on a few things, but we want to know that's big market. And so hopefully, preferably global, which makes it larger than just single country market. It also helps de-risk the investment if that they're operating in multiple countries, just because the regulatory environment can still be quite volatile. We also look for founders who have done this before, who have done it before, who have been involved in the problem, whether through other ventures or through a corporate job or something like that. Some of them it's personal, like they've seen their mothers or their fathers suffer these type of pain points as well, and are now at an age where they can do something about it. We do look for those things. We look for a business model that makes sense. So are you, pricing for the market that you're in? Or are you hoping that somebody will be able to afford your solution? So we like to make sure that the business model makes sense. And I think just good, revenues. Like we all want to see something that's already generating money. And if it's really early, like pre-revenues, then all the other factors have to make a lot of sense. Like it has to also be a problem or a pain point that we've experienced ourselves or that resonates. So we understand that your solution is attacking the problem in the right way, or we can hopefully help advise and guide it as well. So those are some of the things that we do to de-risk the investment. But yeah, ultimately, I just tell everybody, is it making money? And how does it plan to make money if it's not?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like going on an episode of Shark Tank, right? You always see those people on there that it's a little early and you think, ooh, gosh, this is awesome. That's an idea. That would be fun to do, the Nigerian version of Shark Tank with Lydia. Yeah. Fabulous. Is there ever a time when you see a company and you really love it, but you think it just doesn't make sense? Is that because they are in the pre-revenue stage, or when do you walk away from an investment?
Yeah. So for me, I'll tell you, for me professionally, because I work with smaller investors, if I don't have enough investor interest, we have to walk away. And that's tough. There's several companies where I just really believe in what they're building, but, clients only have so many funds. And so they do have to make the difficult decision to, select what they're going to put money to work in. Generally speaking, the reason why we really do walk away is because the business model is much harder than the entrepreneur realizes. Mm-hmm. And they're not seeing, they're very stuck in the way that they want to approach the market, which is fine. Like, at the end of the day, it's your company. And we can just disagree to your approach. And so that's ultimately why I walk away from investment opportunities, is that I think that there is a business model mismatch. It's not even so much as a product market fit, not even, I guess most people will call it a product market fit. For me, it's business model. How are you trying to monetize this? And if it doesn't make sense to the market, that's typically where, and we see an unwillingness from the founder to pivot, then we'll have to walk away. Mm-hmm.
No, that makes perfect sense. You see a lot of businesses fail because they don't pivot to the market environment, or they don't realize the business they're actually in. Sometimes it's not so obvious,
Exactly.
Amazon is a logistics company, right? Like, it's not necessarily the thing that you're selling that you're really delivering.
Exactly.
So do you find when you're investing in these young startups that they often do pivot their model once you guys get involved, or as you see them grow, they adapt and find a new way to succeed?
Yes. So I can say that about several of the companies in our portfolio, that they've been able to pivot. I think of one comes to mind because we've had literal disagreements, and I'm always like, go forth. No problem. And he came back to me. He gave me our quarterly update last month, and he was like, so I asked him, so are you still so you're doing this you're making this pivot. What's going to happen to that product that service that you wanted that we've talked about? He said, oh, we've killed it. We're not, he said, we're killed it. We're not going to pursue it anymore. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, you were right. I said, no, say it louder. Say it louder. Like, you were right. I'm like, okay, I'm just saying, like, I know, he told me, you don't understand. You're not sitting here in Nigeria. You don't know, like, this is how we do things. Blah, 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 blah. I said, okay. What I do understand is business, and that will always prevail. So I tell a lot of our clients, what you can offer beyond capital is sound business practices. It doesn't matter where you're sitting in the world. Sound business is sound business. And we can provide that kind of wisdom too. But again, it's for the founders to accept. But he and I have a great relationship, but it was just, so I was just poking him. I was ribbing him a little bit, but
absolutely.
It's like, this is something I saw 2 years ago, but that's okay. You have to learn.
Yeah. Sometimes everyone has to get there on their own, but thankfully you could do it together. And it's hard because when you're an entrepreneur, the business often feels like your baby, to say, oh, my kid's misbehaving, it's a little tough. But to that point too, I think the beauty of being invested is that it is something that you can feel ownership and pride over, and, really connected to more so sometimes than traditional employment. We always talk about that with trading, how great the autonomy feels, that at the end of the day, you're your own boss. And so, whether you had a good trading day or a bad trading day, the buck stops with you, but then you start fresh the next day. And I'm wondering how that has impacted your choices as an investor? Do you, wake up every morning feeling excited about it? Is that one of the things that drew you to this in the first place, is really being able to direct your own course?
Yeah, I think it's been, regardless of the asset class, I think trading and investing in general, and just that general sense of entrepreneurship that is inherent in our business has definitely been very attractive. And, when I started in this career, I was just having my children, and it just gave me a lot of flexibility. It didn't matter if they stayed up all night. I was looking at markets. So it's like, okay, come on. So, I can rock this baby to sleep and look at the markets while I do it. That works for, it worked. It ended up working out. It helped me to be able to stay up all kinds of hours. I would have people on Twitter like, do you sleep? No, actually, I don't. But no one knew. It's because, I have a 3-month-old. It's not necessarily because of the market, but it gave me a great reputation as somebody who was always in the market. So when I was tweeting at the time, like all this market stuff, people knew it was reliable. Like, she's actually in these markets.
I love that. Just seeing motherhood and the markets work so well together. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges in this country is we don't really have a system for paid family leave, at least not an effective one across the country. And right. I have spoken to a lot of women who, have decided to leave the workforce when they start having families. And I think this is one way that you can still be involved, be building your own wealth, and again, control your schedule like that. So it's great to hear that was what happened for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And not meaning to, it just it just happened that way. It was a pleasant surprise.
I love that it came together. You were in the right place at the right time. Definitely. So to that point too, I think, family often motivates us to do what we do, and so does community. And it sounds like you are not only involved in these communities that are so impactful in Africa, and then you're also mentoring and training people. How much of an influence does that have on what you do? Like, is that one of the motivating factors to help grow community?
Yes, no, absolutely. Definitely. I really got, my mind was changed to away from, I can't teach people how to do this, to everyone feels like I can help them. And I was teaching at the time. I'm a great teacher. So why not just change my content from, teaching someone how to code a computer to teaching someone how to trade the markets? Let me just try it. So my first student, her name was Cheryl. She just chased me, actually. She chased me all over Twitter. She just chased me all over Twitter. She's like, you are the person I want to teach me how to do this. And I said, okay. All right, you're my first student in this, so we're going to be learning together. She says, totally fine. And she was such a new trader. New. And for her to watch her now be able to take trades is just like, wow. I really taught her how to do this. And she can read markets. She can read charts. Like, it's just incredibly satisfying when I have clients who, didn't think that they should get an advisor because they only had $500, $1,000, but we made it work for them. And, 3-4 years later, they can, either liquidate so they can take out a down payment on a house, or they're in a crunch and they actually have some money. I'm like, well, we have this cash over here. It's like, oh yeah. Or just to see it grow. Just, I didn't know what I was getting into it with you. I thought maybe I could do it myself, but they had been saying that for the last 10 years and still have nothing. And we've been working together for 2-3 years and they've seen their account grow. Like, those type of things are just so gratifying to talk to founders who are building these incredible businesses in, some of the most challenging business environments, and just being able to not just help with capital, but with advice is amazing. It's been amazing to watch the community grow, to watch it grow up, to see, now there's a very real, like being a part of FinTwit when it really just came online, really at the very beginnings, to now see VC Twitter, to see Nigeria VC Twitter, to see Africa Tech Twitter, and just to see all these different communities. It's incredible. It's really been incredible to be the youngest person in the room to now being one of the more seasoned people in the room. It's been an amazing evolution. I'm really proud of my part in it all, and still really very much inspired because there's just so much further that we can all go in this. It's been amazing to just even see more and more women speak out on Twitter about their trading. It used to be literally 4 of us who were brave enough to tweet because I won't say that we caught more feedback than anybody else. I actually don't think we do, but we just caught a lot more. I think we got a lot more flack or a lot more trolling, because how could we possibly be good at this or write about it or even dare to put out a trade or put out a signal and then it be right? I got a lot. I call it feedback. I got a lot of feedback in those early Twitter days. And ultimately, I would just be right. And at the end of it, just going back to your point about the business too, like your account balance, you're either right or wrong, right? And when you're right, humbly, I don't need to brag. Everybody saw my tweet, it's timestamped. So I had other people actually do the bragging for me, like people who wanted to defend me. It's like, it's fine. Let the market do what it do, and then it does. And they'll come, so anything that, all that mentions. But being very humbly, even being humble, even having the humility to be wrong, I'll tweet when I'm wrong. And that's what really set me apart as well, is that people really knew that I was genuine because I tweeted when I was wrong and I tweeted when I was right. But because, obviously the win record is better, you have a better winning track record. And I just gained credibility just by being, I think, honest and unafraid to be wrong or right. It was just, these are my thoughts. And I can put out my thoughts just like this male trader sitting next to me or across from me, right? So it's, this business has been actually really great in terms of community. And like I said, I've been embraced so much by the community, but now to be like a leader in the community, it's a transition that I look up now and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I've done a lot of these things already.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. What a journey. It's so wonderful to see just as the evolution of the social space where people can share these ideas, how much more accepting it has become. And you nailed it when you said how satisfying it is to help people. I genuinely feel that way too. And everything I've ever pursued, it just makes it that much sweeter to say, we are all in this together. And at the end of the day, the market doesn't know who you are. The trolls on Twitter might see your picture, but the market doesn't know. I like to play around sometimes because my middle name is Kyle. So sometimes if people are being difficult, I'll put Kyle and see if there's a change. And, unfortunately, sometimes there is. Oftentimes there isn't. But, I think at the end of the day, that honesty has clearly served you well and definitely has inspired another generation of investors and traders to think, I can do this too.
Yes.
So going back to what motivates you, clearly this fund is having a tremendous impact and you're helping a whole new generation of investors. I'm wondering how your mindset about money and some of your early opinions about wealth and having more of an abundance mindset have influenced you, certainly starting with that fund your mom set up was so important in the early years, but how moving forward do you think that's made a difference?
So I've done a lot of examining around money mindset. I think because we're working with so many people who come from a variety of either principles or values or even traumas around money. Sure. And just working with different clients to be aware of it. First of all, it's not even for me to fix it. It's really to make you aware of it and to be aware of another side that is a more abundant approach to this thing, whatever this thing is that we're trying to achieve financially. But me personally, because I grew up with my parents, saving with the savings account, doing the investing, those things to me, it's not that they were natural. It was just like, okay, that's just one of those things I have to do. Like I have to go to school. I have to go to college. I have to get a degree. I have to invest some money. Like and I have to get a job. Mm-hmm. Like that was always a part of the checklist. And it was really, it was more so around how do you get from one level of wealth to the next, and what is required at that next level of wealth, which traditionally is likely going to be beyond the level of wealth you grew up in. And so then It's a whole different, I can't look back at my mom and my dad for certain advice. They can't help me with VC investing. Like they cannot help me with, beyond a 401k stocks. And that would be it. Right. So they can't help me with real estate investing. So it's like another level that when we reach this another level of wealth, because it's usually beyond what we've grown up with, what we've grown up around, and what we know, unless you're in these more high income industries like finance, like tech, where you have other peers who are likely making that same kind of money.
Sure.
When you get there on your own, and I mean on your own, really, let's say you're like your teacher. So there's been some kind of investment that you've done that qualifies you into the next level of wealth, whatever that means for you as well. There's some more work that we have to do just around. Now that I have this wealth, you start to really see, or you start to now examine, how do you spend your money? How do you use your money? How does it come in? Is it primarily, how do you make the shift from actively creating money through your income, through a job, through your time, to more passively creating now money, which is like your investments. And so your investments might have to change because they require, you just have different kinds of requirements. And so that's the piece that we work with a lot, because it's very different. It's very personal to the individual. Somebody's next level of wealth might be where somebody has already been and has already surpassed. But that person, both individuals still need a level of mindset shifting when it comes to now operating in this different level of wealth. So it's even something that I work on and work through myself as well. Like as I step into different asset classes and the returns that those asset classes bring, I now have to, there's a different way to recycle those dollars and different things. I have children, so I have to now think about dependents and jumpstarting their investing the way my mom did. And it's going to look different than the way my mother did, because I'm at a different level and I know more. So I think that's the big shift. So once you get aware of your programming that we all come into awareness of, then there's also a very much a need to evolve that mindset so that you can continue, so that your wealth or your money continues to grow. And so people often think that your money is their money is stagnating because they're not making enough. They have to go get another job, when a lot of it is just your mindset. It might be that you're thinking about money, and that thinking is causing you to make decisions that are stifling your money. So that's a lot of things that we do work with clients is to understand how they're thinking about and acting out in money or acting out financially.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it. I think it's so important whether you are a young person starting out or someone who's invested for years, because each time you level up, there's that shift where you have to get comfortable and feel like you belong and recognize, you're still operating in a new system. I mean, this happens all the time with trading, right? When, I started with one contract and now I'm taking 10. And then all of a sudden my trading plan went out the window, So being able to take that breath, and how lucky for your clients to have you guiding them through that, to recognize, okay, this is your situation now. Like, what are our goals? How do we shift here? And it really comes down to that intentional planning, right? Whether whatever we're actively spending on or building towards in the future. And I think when we have that plan, it's easier to feel like we deserve it, where there can be so much emotional junk around it. Even when people appear to be quite successful, sometimes they'll hit a wall because there are these unprocessed, emotions, or we weren't quite sure where we were going. So it's really inspiring to hear you working with people and helping them to level up like that.
Yeah. And I think just to build on your point is there's a level of discipline that has to happen too. So sometimes some part of that shift is just sticking to this trading plan. Like, it might be a bigger it might be more contract, or it might be a bigger position, but I still need to trade in the same way that got me to this point. All right. So I think also, just like you're investing, I should make the distinction. I think your investing should be very disciplined and very consistent. And then what you actively do with your wealth as it's growing, as you're accumulating it, there is mindset shifts and reprogramming that occurs so that you can keep it, grow it. But in your trading, we have to be disciplined. I think our investment approach shouldn't change with size. And that's what often tends to happen. So I just want to double down on that point that you're making. Like, we have to recognize
absolutely.
that.
It's easy to do, right? I mean, and we see this even just with lifestyle creep as we start to earn more, right? It's easy to be like, oh, well, I've got the budget now. And, there's a certain amount of that I think it's important to recognize your success and, do reward yourself. I was listening to something from Sally Crawtall the other day, who was saying, so often we materialize our biggest fears in our spending habits, right? We either spend everything because we're afraid of not having, or we hoard everything because we're afraid of not having. And then either way, we end up with nothing. And it's true. We see this. We all know people who act this way, where you're like, oh my God, that person's so tight-fisted, they never get to enjoy their life, or that person has zero discipline and they never get ahead. And finding that balance, and it really comes back to our goals and our values with what we want to experience in life. And I love how you're helping people to do that, because I think so often money has had a negative connotation, and especially for women, right? We were taught it's impolite to talk about it. Like, you don't want to be disrespectful, instead of doing this as a tool that we all have to grow with. And that is really the biggest shift, right? It's currency, it's fluid. It's not, it's not supposed to be stagnant, as you said.
Exactly. Yes. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. And you never know where you're going to go. I think sometimes we get one idea of success and then we reach it. And then it's like, well, what's beyond that? Yeah. I got very motivated myself this last weekend. I went to a live art auction, which I've never gone to before, but my dad is a big Western art lover. And I have to tell you, it was pretty exciting. And I said, boy, I can't wait to the day when I've got the coin to bid on real art, because this is fun, to be able to get to a point in life where you're like, yeah, I can have these beautiful pieces of art around me and support this artist community. It was cool. It wasn't something that I was expecting at all.
Yes.
But, there's just new things to be reaching for all the time.
Exactly.
So, Lydia, this has been so enjoyable to learn about. I am definitely excited to get more involved investing. It's something that I've realized I don't have to wait till I'm, at the end of my work life to be involved with and have the capital to start with. I think it is something that still feels overwhelming to millennials, though, because as a recent CNBC article stated, millennials own about 4% of the country's wealth, and half of that is Mark Zuckerberg, compared to 21% of the nation's wealth that boomers had in the late 80s. So if there was one piece of advice you could give to millennials starting out, really wanting to grow their wealth, where would you have them start?
So I honestly would say that you should be working with an investment advisor. And I really want to emphasize the investment advisor, because you really want somebody who's going to, you should be focused on growing wealth. And that means this one little piece is you should be investing your savings. And I know that flies in the face of all the advice that we're given. While there's no reason to have money sitting, interest rates do not are not in favor of the savers as they were in the mid 80s, where we were all told to save because, you can live off your interest. That's not the case anymore. The cost of living is just too high. And right now we're living in a pandemic. Some people would say post-pandemic. Inflation is just going to be crazy. And I don't think that is as temporary as the Fed has been telling us. So I would tell millennials, and I do tell millennials, that you have to be investing your savings. So you can get your emergency fund, the 3 to 6 months of money so that you can live for that period of time. Everything else that's in your savings should be invested. Pick an asset class. You should pick several asset classes, and you should be investing. You should be actively and aggressively investing at the beginning of your professional career. Stop thinking of savings as this place where it just sits and you have it there. You need to be growing that savings. And the best way, really the only way right now, is to do it through investing. So that's the mind shift I want millennials to really take into account, is that you can't just save to save. You need to save to invest, and really be comfortable with being able to do that. Take risk, take that kind of risk on your money. It's the smartest risk you're going to make.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it. The sooner you start, the better. It's so hard, I think, for people to envision their future self who's going to benefit from this sometimes, right? I hear a lot of people say, I don't have the budget for investing. Like, well, you've got the budget for Uber and takeout. So I think,
exactly.
And it's not to say you shouldn't take Uber and have takeout, but, again, coming back to that intentional spending and, what am I really working for? And sometimes we don't know. But if we have that mindset of an investor, eventually it'll come to fruition. I mean, we both took trips to Italy as young women, and you had your mutual funds that you sold. I was a saver, not an investor, but I had saved and had the money to do that. And I didn't know why I was saving, but I knew I would want to do something. And I think that's kind of the biggest shift, right? Is knowing that to be able to have a fruitful life, we've got to plan for it. So thank you. This has been so inspiring. I'm very excited to know more about you and what you do. And I definitely want to get more involved. This is great stuff.
Thank you so much.
So if people want to follow you and hear all of your great tweets, they can find you at Faith Might on Twitter, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the talk. I love this chat. I love talking about this stuff. I love all manners of investing, and I love the opportunity to talk about it. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning into the Madam Trader podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and leave us a review. Did you have a great trade this week? Tell us about it on Twitter and Instagram at Madam Trader NYC. We'd love to interact with you. The Madam Trader podcast reflects the opinions of only the authors, who are associated persons of T3 Live, and their guests. They do not represent the views of T3 Live LLC or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. They are meant for informational purposes only and are not a recommendation to buy or sell any security, cryptocurrency, or investment strategy in any account. This is not an offer or sale of a security, not a research report, and is not intended to serve on the basis for any investment decision. Any third-party information provided therein does not reflect the views of T3 Live, T3 Professional LLC, T3 Trading Group, or any of their subsidiaries or affiliates. All investments involve risk, including loss of principal, and past performance does not guarantee future results. T3 Live LLC, member FINRA.